I thought I would take a little bit of a break to try and organize my TBR to attend a romance showcase from Penguin. Is this going to be one of my favorite books of all time? Absolutely not. So I'm going away in 1 week and I'm so excited, but I do have a number of things to get through and also a couple of books that I could really do with reading before then. So I'm going to be trying to get through as much as I possibly can so that I can have a wonderful, relaxing, stress-free trip to South Korea. So in terms of the books, the most important thing that I need to read right now is Slaying the Shadow Prince by Helen Shora. This one is my Patreon book club book, and I need to make the spoiler video so that I can schedule that to go up while I'm away. So the most important thing we do, of course, is read the book. Now, I did actually already start this one, I think just before I picked up The Shadow of the Gods, and I made it 17% of the way through. So I have made a decent dent in it, and I'm just going to want to be wrapping that one up. So this one is a standalone romantasy that you can read as a standalone, but also it intersects with the Legends of Thesmar series, which is what we're reading through for my Patreon book club. That series is about a girl who wants nothing more than to be one of the legendary warriors of Thesmar. However, because she's a woman and there is a prophecy that said a woman wielding a blade is going to bring about the end of days, she is not allowed to train and become a warrior. So she does find a exception to the rule when she petitions the royals for a place at this training academy, and she does get to attend. However, Slaying the Shadow Prince is a prequel standalone romance, so it's not following Thea from the main series, but it does involve the love interest from the Legends of Thesmar, which is Wilder Hawthorne, because he is the most reclusive of the legends. He's grumpy, he's quiet, and he likes to go off on his own killing monsters. He's not really a fan of a group project, and he used to have people that he was close to, but various things have happened to those people that have left him a little closed off. And one of the people that he used to be close to was his mentor, Talamea, who is our love interest in Slaying the Shadow Prince. Now, from the main series, all we know of Talamea is that he is off living life with his wife. He's happy wife, happy life, and he is no longer a warrior of Thesmar. He has retired. However, Wilder doesn't like to talk about him. It seems like he abandoned Wilder a little bit. And in Slaying the Shadow Prince, we find out Talamea's story and what actually happened, which is incredibly important at the point in the Legends of Thesmar series that I'm at, where Wilder's been doing something a little bit out of character, and I'm hoping that this is going to explain his motivations a little bit. So that one is actually quite short. All of the books in the Legends of Thesmar series that I've read so far have been over 500 pages. This one is under 400. I don't typically love standalone fantasy romance stories like this. I'm actually only really open to reading it because it does connect to the Legends of Thesmar series, and I've enjoyed the couple of books that I've read, although I did enjoy book one more than book two, if I'm being honest. And so hopefully as well, because it is exploring a little nugget of this world that I've ended up really interested in, hopefully I'll end up enjoying it. So I have been hustling today, trying to edit as much of the content that I already have filmed as possible, ready for next week. But I thought I would take a little bit of a break to try and organize my TBR for when I'm away, because I'm very aware that this trip is fast approaching. I haven't even got my suitcase out yet and started putting things in it, which less than 1 week out is very unlike me. So we're going to work through what I'm taking with me together, because this trip straddles 2 months. So I'm going for the end of March, but also the beginning of April. These days, I only take my Kindle with me because my battery lasts ample time for me to get through a full flight without having to worry about charging it. And I do also take my iPad with me with some television on, which I think this time I'm taking the newest season of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, because I haven't started it yet. And then, of course, I'm going to be taking a K-drama with me. I haven't decided which one yet, but I'm thinking about Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha. But I need to do my research and see what I have on my watch list. But in terms of the books, I have just filmed my April TBR, which is down here. And My March TBR is currently on top, as well as the books that I've read this month. And then these are all of my arcs that I haven't gotten to yet, whether they're ones that I've missed and didn't get around to, or whether they're ones for upcoming months that I don't need to worry about yet. But let's start by seeing what I already have on my Kindle. A book that is on my March TBR and a book on my April TBR actually are the last two books in the Legends of Thesmar series by Helen Shora. I have those out on KU. So that is, I think, is it Fate and Furies and Storm and Shadows? I do film spoiler videos for those though, which is what I'm doing right now for Slaying the Shadow Prince. So I probably won't try and read those, because obviously I could blast through one of those on a 12-13 hour flight easily, but I won't have made the spoiler video. But if I was desperate and ran out of things, I do have those. I also have out on Kindle Unlimited a book that I've tentatively put on my April TBR, which that should have just gone up, so I'll link it in case you've missed it. But for one of the Magical Readathon prompts, I have one of the books from my owned TBR that I've officially used to fulfill the prompt. But I did also mention that I do have Daggermouth by H.M. Wolf out on KU, which is a very hyped like dystopian romance right now. So, you know, if I just got my Kindle, might be tempted to pick that up. I also have The Housemaid. I think The Housemaid by Frida McFadden is one that I'm definitely going to be getting to, because this is on my Magical Readathon TBR and it is the perfect book for a flight. I think my flight on the way back is between 14 and 15 hours, and I do sleep on flights, especially this one's a very early morning one. But we land in the UK, so we leave Seoul at 8 a.m. we land in the UK somewhere around 2 p.m. and then by the time we've got our train home, we're going to get home at 11 p.m. So I do want to sleep somewhere on that flight, otherwise I'm going to be deceased by the time I'm trying to get a train home. But I mean, a thriller, super easy read. So that one is definitely going to be high on my priority. I would be surprised if I didn't manage to get to that. So that is what's already loaded on my Kindle. Let me just check that they are all downloaded. I have a bunch of other stuff as well. Like my Kindle Unlimited is always maxed out, but I think those are the ones that are most relevant that I may actually get to. For the rest of my TBR, I need to put my actual South Korea TBR on my Kindle if possible, which is Wicked Fox by Kat Cho and The God in the Gumiho by Sophie Kim. Now I'm pretty sure that this one is a duology, and I also think that this one is too, but this is very much going to depend on whether I can get the ebook on Libby, and I am definitely going to overestimate the amount that I'm going to read. I say overestimate. I am aware that I'm not going to read as much as I'm putting on my Kindle, but this is the beauty of taking my Kindle, and it's why I exclusively take my Kindle now. I can put like 50 books on there and it does not matter if I'm going to read them, because I'm not carrying 50 books around in a suitcase. Wicked Fox. I think what I'm going to do is try and get the entire series for both of these, which I've just managed to get Wicked Fox. So that one will go to the TBR. There is, as far as I can tell, no sequel to this on Libby though, so I can't take that. So let's try The God in the Gumiho. This is a newer book, so I'm not sure whether I'll be able to get this. Only audiobook. I really did not anticipate struggling to find this on Libby because it's relatively popular. So I thought that there would be a few different libraries that had copies of it, but apparently not. So my next stop is to have a look on Amazon, see if I can get like a 99p ebook deal. No, the Kindle edition is actually more expensive than the paperback for that one. Oh, I'm so upset. I really want to read this. Oh, the sequel to this is actually a companion novel, which I didn't know, but also is not currently on a Kindle deal. Is that everywhere that I can look? Ebooks, yeah, I use Libby, Kindle, and like KU. Okay, I'm gonna have to think about this because I really did not anticipate struggling to find ebook copies of these. So I do actually want to take a little bit more with me anyway, just to be comfortable. Like I said, I have the entirety of my Kindle library to dive through if I was really desperate, but I would like 3 books off my regular TBR, maybe 3 off my April TBR as well if I could manage it. I'm pretty sure actually I checked this because this was an option for one of my magical readathon prompts, and I decided to go with something else, but I still need to read that. So Hot Desk. It's actually more shocking to me that they have this book available, which is a relatively new release. It was released in the US before the UK, but still, I think within the last 6 months, and there's no queue for that, and yet I can't find The God and the Gumi Ho by Sophie Kim. My mind is like honestly blown. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 books. I want 2 more. I'm probably not going to be able to get Rings of Fate. Nope. There's probably a queue for Across the Vanishing Sky. Yeah, there's like a 14-week wait on Across the Vanishing Sky by Catherine Cowles. I didn't think that that would be particularly successful. Pomegranate Gate? That's not a super popular book though. Oh, it is available though. So that's going on my vacation TBR. Is the sequel too much to ask for? Yeah, they only have the audio for the sequel. I think I'm gonna leave it there. So I have these 3 books loaded onto my Kindle. I also have Daggermouth by H.M. Wolfe and The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I think my priority that I'm going to start with is definitely going to be Wicked Fox. I think when I went to China, because I went to China for a similar amount of time as I'm going to be away this time, and I think I read 3 books. So I'll start with Wicked Fox. On the way home, I'm definitely going to prioritize The Housemaid, and I am going to see, I'm going to hope that I can get some sort of 99p like daily deal on this, or see if I can get this on something like Scribd or Everend and read it on my iPad instead, which is actually really inconvenient, but this is the one that I was most excited to read for my trip. Okay, never mind, I'm back, because I just searched the name of the book directly, the companion novel to Wicked Saints, and it appeared. So I'm gonna borrow that on Libby. And then I'm also gonna see if I can do anything different to find the Sophie Kim book. Okay, so they have the sequel to The God and the Gumi Ho in an ebook, which wasn't coming up when I searched Sophie Kim. Literally, I found it now. Never mind. That was so weird. And then I'll also grab The God and the Gwysin. So I've now changed my mind. My priority is going to be this one. I'll start with this one. If I like it, I'll carry on to the sequel. And then I'm also going to try and maybe start Wicked Fox as well, and the sequel. And then on the way back, read The Housemaid. And then I have these 2 and also Daggermouth as backups in case I get that far, which is unlikely. But these are the books that are my list of possibilities for while I'm away, and I guess we'll just find out together which ones I actually managed to get to. Good afternoon. I am at the train station because I'm heading into London to attend a romance showcase from Penguin. And you know what, guys? I've done it again. And if you don't know exactly what I mean, the thing that I've done is I've left my SD card in my PC. So I'm just gonna have to make do with my phone. I apologize if there is any difference in quality, which I'm pretty sure there's going to be. I am really thrilled though, because I did manage to score the final parking space in the car park, which if you guys have been following me for a while, you will know that that can be an eternal struggle. But on the drive here, I was actually listening to my audiobook, which is Apples Never Fall by Liam Moriarty. I actually have less than 2 hours of it left now, so I think on the drive home tonight, I'm probably going to end up finishing it. I'm actually really enjoying it as well. If you missed the vlog where I was talking about it originally, it is a mystery that delves into the lives of a family when their mother goes missing. And all of the children in this family are adults. The youngest one is almost 40, and their parents used to run a tennis school, and a few years ago they decided to retire and they sold the school, and they're not people who are enjoying their retirement. They don't like a slow-paced life. So when this girl turns up on their doorstep and asks them for help, they jump at the chance to help her, but her children are very concerned that this woman is not exactly who she sees she is. And all of this comes to a head when the children's mother, Joy, goes missing, and their father is blamed because this woman has conveniently disappeared. The thing that I really like about this and listening to the audiobook of it is that it has a kind of gossipy element to it. A lot of the perspectives that we hear from are from people who are overhearing the children in discussion, or they're hairdressers and are hearing them on the phone like talking to each other. So it has the element of gossip, but then while this is a mystery, it does very much cross into the realm of contemporary fiction as well, because we're really delving into the lives of the individual children, the experiences they had growing up. And then you also see, because it's in 2 timelines, it's in when this woman turned up at the Delaney's door, and also in present day when Joy Delaney is missing, you see their mother's perspective on their childhood and how that differs from their recollection, and the way that they see their parents' marriage as perfect as children often do. But then you also see like the very subtle cracks in it that from an outside perspective, from the perspective of children, like there's nothing super crazy going on in their marriage, so they assume it's all happy, but there's very fine cracks that are starting to splinter as this woman kind of turns up in their life. So I'm really enjoying that, and like I said, it should be finished on the way home. So I mean, I'm only going to get home at 1 a.m. so I'll update you guys tomorrow. But I do of course also have my Kindle with me, where I'm going to try and get through as much of Slaying the Shadow Prince as possible, because I would really like to have the video for that wrapped up tomorrow so that I can edit it and schedule it for while I'm away.
This is the Peggy Michael Joseph Romance Showcase 2026. I'm Natasha. I am, essentially my entire career is built around books.
Hi, I'm Brandon Purvis, the winner of the Penguin Michael Joseph Undiscovered Writers Prize in 2025. My debut novel, Do Not Kiss Nicholas Prince, is a queer romance inspired by one of my favourite movies of all time, Notting Hill. It follows Eli, the grandson of a famous author who gets caught up in a fake dating scheme with former boy band member Nicholas Prince, when Nicholas is cast in a movie adaptation of one of his grand's novels. It's full of fun, spice and heart, and I can't wait for you guys to read it in February 2027.
So on my way home last night, I did indeed manage to finish Apples Never Fall by Liane Moriarty, and I gave it 5 stars. I did have to sit and think on that for a while, because is this going to be one of my favourite books of all time? Absolutely not. Is it going to be on my best books of the year list? Very debatable, but did it keep me interested and gripped throughout the entire time I was reading this? 100% it did. And this fall book of the month is categorized as contemporary fiction. It also has a strong mystery element in here, so I would say it's quite comfortable sitting in either of those genres, but it really does dig into the minutiae of the lives of every member of this family. So as somebody who doesn't like slice of life stories or things that really focus on the day-to-day, I am surprised by how invested in this book I was. And unlike with a thriller, it wasn't the mystery that was driving me in this. I was interested in what had happened to Joy Delaney, but that wasn't my driving force in continuing to pick this up. It was just that I was actually genuinely interested in the little details of the lives of this family, which feels so weird. I do think because we had that mysterious element and me listening and potentially trying to puzzle out how each little bit that we were learning would play a part in the puzzle of what happened to Joy was something that probably made this more enjoyable to me. But considering Liane Moriarty has a little bit of a slower pace in that regard, I am genuinely surprised that I love this so much. And even for like the mystery and thriller genre, it is quite rare for me to give a book 5 stars, because I tend to be expecting a really grand plot twist and often I'm underwhelmed. But this kept me guessing until the very, very end. And when it all came together and we kind of saw how the puzzle pieces fit, you know what? It was masterfully done. Now, I am somebody who primarily reads fantasy, sci-fi, romantasy. So in terms of like the mystery, thriller, contemporary fiction genre, I'm not your girl for recommendations. I am easily pleased. And I think that that is why I am so much more likely these days to give out 5 stars to books outside of the fantasy genre, because when it comes to fantasy, I am picky. Like, I have seen it all done before at this point, so it takes a lot more to surprise me. And I think I'm learning more and more as a reader that what drives me, what I really enjoy, is being taken by surprise. And that is somewhere where I feel the fantasy genre is really lacking for me at this point, and why I'm kind of feeling that a lot of the fantasy books I've read over the last few years have been a little lackluster. So I do like to spice it up with something a little bit different. I really love the audiobook of this as well. I think the narrator did an excellent job. And I do think that the way that we learn the information from the family members or about the family members through onlookers did have that element of gossip that I was talking about that also made everything seem a little bit more salacious and a little bit more interesting. And I feel like the way that we had this, not necessarily facade of a perfect family, but for all intents and purposes, this is a pretty normal family. The kids, like, they love their parents, but that doesn't mean that they don't have elements of their childhood where they feel like their parents have wronged them, especially because this story does center around tennis and the passion that the Delaney's, like the elder Delaney's, have for the sport that they've tried to instill in their children, and their children don't necessarily have the same passion that the adults do, and that has somewhat shaped their lives in very different ways. And also the way that their family dynamic has developed kind of from that point. So like I said, I'm not your girl for mystery recommendations, but if you want an enjoyable audiobook, I would definitely recommend giving this one a try. I did not manage, however, to finish Slaying the Shadow Prince, so I'm actually going to go and get tucked up on the couch with Kami and read a little bit of that now, but I do think I am probably going to be wrapping that up tomorrow. I have my holiday hair appointment in the morning and I feel like I'm going to be in there for quite a while, so hopefully I'll be able to finish it then so I can bring you guys my final thoughts. I haven't been having the best time with this one though, if I'm being honest. I think that the fact that it's focused on romance when that is not the information that I want from the story, like I want the background of Talamir and it's delving more into him developing his romantic relationship than it is the nitty-gritty of what I want to know. So I feel like I'm getting a little bit frustrated with it in that regard, but I feel like that is a conflict with who I am as a reader and what I'm interested in versus what this story is. Like, I knew this was going to be a standalone romance, so I can't be mad that it's focusing on the romance. Like, that is its primary function, is to be a romantasy story, and with it being a standalone, it is a little bit more prevalent on the romance because we only have this one book to like develop this relationship. I will say though, I was close to DNFing up until I think about the 50% mark, and the last, I think maybe 20%, I think I'm at like 68%. So the last 20-ish% that I've read did pick up quite a bit, and I'm really enjoying. The one thing that I really like about this is the banter between Wilder, who is the hero of the Legends of Thesmar series, and Talamir, who is his mentor. Like, I'm enjoying seeing those two interact because we don't get that in the Legends of Thesmar series, but overall not the most compelling one at this point. We do seem to have skewed a little bit plot heavy where I left it when I got off the train last night though, so hopefully it will continue in that regard to the end of the book. And the event last night that I attended, the Penguin Michael Joseph Romance Showcase, was pretty much exactly what it said on the tin. It was Penguin Michael Joseph showcasing their upcoming romance releases. They did have some proofs available as well as some finished copies. I think the majority of the proofs that they had were ones that I already own. They are specifically the two that were most interesting to me I already have, which is One Perfect Storm by Carly Fortune, which is released in May, and I'm really excited to read If Books Could Kill by Kate Eberly. Not Eberl, as I have been saying. So I only snagged one book by an author that I've heard a little bit about, but I've never read from, and that was Happily Never After by Lynn Painter. This one is a finished copy. They had quite a few Lynn Painter books out, but this is the one that sounded the most interesting to me. This one is about a woman who finds out just before she's getting married that she has been cheated on. So instead of calling off the wedding, she hires a stranger to interrupt the ceremony to confront her fiance. So I'm assuming that it's going to be a romance between those two. Sounded a little bit fun, and I've been thinking a lot recently about why I don't like things like cozy fantasy and why I don't like romantasy when it's more romance focused, or why like a standalone romantasy doesn't interest me as much. And I think it's because I take my fantasy really seriously. You've probably noticed, like, I like my stakes to be really high, and that is what I'm looking for in fantasy. I like the world to be complex and intricate, and I like to feel like the characters are in danger. So when it comes to reading for pure entertainment, when it comes to me just wanting to enjoy myself or maybe not think too hard, fantasy is not the genre that I'm reaching for. I like a rom-com. And I also like a thriller. And I also do like a little contemporary romance for a palate cleanser. Like I said, when I reread The Hating Game, though, I do also like a little bit extra going on with my contemporary romance, which is why I'm particularly interested in this one, because I think this has an element of romantic suspense, because the main character asks her favourite romance author if she can be the main character in her next book, but then she goes on this like dream date and the guy tries to kill her. So I'm excited to see where it goes from there, but I definitely like a little extra plot, whether that's contemporary issues or I think I'll really like the romantic suspense genre when I get into it. So yeah, I'm quite excited to pick this one up and see if I enjoy Lynn Painter, because I know that she's quite a prolific author in that she has tons and tons of books. 7 days and I can't even sleep. Hello my guys, I am fresh from my hair appointment where I did just finish Slaying the Shadow Prince by Helen Shorer, and unfortunately it's not my favourite, and I feel like I've been a little harsh with my rating, but in light of what we've discussed in this vlog about how I feel like I've maybe been rating books a little too generously than reflects my true feelings, I have decided to give this one a 2 or like 2.5 star rating, which I feel is harsh because in comparison to the second book in the Legends of Thesmar series, which I gave 3 stars to, I do think I enjoyed this one maybe a little bit more. Maybe I didn't. I had different issues with them, I feel. In the second book in the Legends of Thesmar, the issue that I had is that it had way too much spicy content for my personal tastes. We were looking at a sex scene like every 8 to 10%, which is like way above my quota of like my preference of spicy content in romantasy books. And we did have a little bit of that in Slaying the Shadow Prince. The last 3 chapters of this book, or 2 chapters in an epilogue, there was a smutty scene in each one, and it felt very much like how much spicy content can we stuff into this book before we draw it to a close. And I'm not somebody who is opposed to explicit content, spicy content in books at all, but I do feel like I don't want that to overtake the plot. I don't want it included for the sake of it. I want it to be in service to the plot, in service to the character development, not gratuitous just for the sake of it being included. And that is just my personal preference as somebody who is reading for things like character growth, world building, and plot above the romantic content, if that makes sense. So that was something that really made me feel disconnected to this book, because that wasn't the only content that we had in the book either. Like the middle of this book, we had a section that once again felt like very smut heavy, which I think is also why I was really struggling with this one around the 50% mark, and then it picked up for me between like 50 to 75%. I will say that up until we got to those last 3 chapters, the rest of this book in the second half was very plot heavy, which I appreciated, but I do accept, as we've talked about, that this is a standalone romantasy novel, and so the romantic content is going to be a much more prevalent part than I personally wanted as somebody who was more interested in the background of Telomere and how that contributed to the plot of the Legends of Thesmar series. That is just a discrepancy between my expectations or what I wanted this book to be and what realistically I knew that this book was going to deliver. As we discussed earlier in this vlog as well, standalone romantasy stories like this, not typically my favorite, because I am reading for that overarching plot. The reason why I like romantasy is because I feel like when we have a romantic connection, especially when the characters feel so deeply for each other, you have higher stakes within the plot, because if you're emotionally connected, if the book is written from an emotive level like romance and romantasy is, then I feel like that endears the reader more to the characters and the situation. So when we're in those life or death moments, it feels a lot more dramatic for the reader being so connected to those characters. And I think that because romantasy is such a popular genre at the moment, we are kind of just getting a lot of books that feel very, very samey, which is not really what this in particular was. But I feel like we're seeing a lot more books that are maybe more romance heavy than fantasy heavy. And as somebody who comes from a background of reading more fantasy than romance, I do definitely prefer it when our focus is more heavily weighted on the fantasy and the plot side than it is on the romantic developments. And then when you get a standalone like this, you do know that essentially it is going to have a lot more of the conventions of the romance genre than it is the really high stakes fantasy plotline. I did really enjoy getting to know a little bit more about Talamir and the way that that is going to flesh out Wilder's backstory when I get back to the Legends of Thesmar series. So I am appreciative of the extra knowledge of the world of the Legends of Thesmar that I gained through reading this book. But this book as a standalone on its own didn't really do anything for me, partially because I actually didn't really feel all that connected to the characters in terms of them being in a romantic relationship. I didn't feel the chemistry there. I felt already a little bit more attached to Talamir because I knew a little bit about him from the Legends of Thesmar series, but in his own story that mainly focuses on this romantic relationship that he is building with our main character of Drew, it didn't really give me anything on that level. So this firmly falls into the category of just being a book that I read, which is unfortunate. That is the worst thing for me. I would rather hate a book than feel really ambivalent and like I wasted my time and I actually gained nothing from it. And like I said, there were some little nuggets of information here that I appreciated, but overall this one was just fine for me, unfortunately. I am excited to return to the Legends of Thesmar series as a whole. My enthusiasm has been dampened a little bit, having not loved this book, but also not having had a great time with Vows and Ruins either. But given that I know that the level of spicy content is going to decrease slightly going into book 3, hopefully we'll have a little bit of an uptick in the plot and I'll start to feel the same way about this series as I did back when I was reading book 1, which I really enjoyed. So now that I've finished that book, that pretty much wraps up this vlog. Honestly, I have no idea what I'm going to be reading next. I have 2 days until we leave for South Korea, so I kind of don't want to start my TBR for Korea. But then also with the amount of preparing for the trip that I still have to do, I don't think I'm going to have time to read a whole other book. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. I feel like my best bet is just to start my Korea TBR a little bit early, or at least pick up something on my Kindle so I don't have to put it down when I go and I can just finish it up on my way to Seoul. But that does bring us to the end of this little reading vlog. I do hope that you have enjoyed it. I know it was a little bit more, I feel, harried than my vlogs tend to be, but honestly for me this was mainly about wrapping up loose ends and getting a couple of books finished from my TBR in preparation for all of the exciting books I've got loaded onto my Kindle for my trip. So the next vlog that you're going to see on my channel is actually probably going to be my South Korea vlog, which is so exciting. I felt quite stressed over this last week trying to get everything done, but now that we're approaching the day that we're actually leaving, I'm feeling a lot more calm and like I can finally get excited for the actual trip. So do stay tuned for that if you are at all interested. But aside from that, guys, I do hope you've enjoyed this vlog if you've made it this far. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.